morning, and welcome back to a new episode of the Daily Wick. So let's talk about what we're looking at here today. We I wasn't able to post on Friday. I did want to, but I wasn't able to. And we left off discussing three positions that we were talking about. One, Oracle. So we can start with that. We were discussing about Oracle, about this gap that we had about 243 to about 310. I had an alert here about 310 change, that if we do cross below it, which we did that following day, that I am going to consider taking a position in the gap fill. This morning, and it had been working in my favor, I did take some profits out on Friday. We were as low as 292, 291 on Friday. But I do believe we could see some continuation again, really depending on what's going on over the next day or so. Just to give you an idea, this morning we kind of gapped up from a close of, or we're at about, what were we here, about 292, 291. We gapped up to approximately 302, something in that range. Ran to about 300, but we have been declining since. So we had a gap up over here. I think part of it, just, you know, analyst ratings, and we had, I think, a message from Trump today that discussed about the TikTok deal, which some may think the TikTok deal is going to be a benefit to Oracle if it does happen, which is something that I want to keep an eye on closely, given that I do have a small short position, but I do have a short position. Um, so we have this gap up, and we've been steadily just declining throughout the day. So I'm watching it very closely. If you take a look at the daily, we had set up a trend line over here, which I was using previously as my exit. If we did break above it, which we did somewhat gap up above it this morning, um, I am still in this position. I want to see what happens here, but I'm, very cautiously trading this as I see the price action come in. But strictly to for the remainder of the gap. I'm not talking about today. I'm talking about the larger gap that we had in between. So we'll see what happens with that. And in the 5 minute, like I said, we've been just steadily declining from that gap up we had this morning. I'd like to see it fill before the end of the day, but we'll see what happens. Palantir, we also had a position in Palantir, and this is your daily on it. We broke this 161 and a half. We had an alert on it, and I believe, I said that if we do break, that I think we'll test the previous highs. We do have a little bit of a short term resistance area over here, about the 171, 172 area, which I'd like to see it cross. If we could, right now, it's still on trend, as you can see. It's still respecting this trend line that we drew out earlier last week. So, we have a little bit of a pullback today off of that 172 area, which I would have expected at this level. Again, it's a short-term resistance area. I do think that provided we have the momentum, that will continue through, but I'd like to see that 172 cross. If we do, I may add to my position. I did take a little off the table on Friday on this bar towards the close, but I'd love that opportunity to get back in, but I really want to see that 172 cross. Then I know that we're going to test those 190s, possibly even break new highs. Today's action, you can call it sideways action. It's been trading still in that range. You can see it more clear on the daily. It just started a little bit of a range here between about 163 and 172. So let's see what happens. right now we're just sitting on the sidelines and we're just watching price action. But don't forget this week the Feds. So we have some numbers out, very important to pay attention to. So we could see a little bit of a choppy week this week, which is what I expect to a certain degree, unless we have some positive momentum come into the market from somewhere. That is Palantir. Nvidia came up on my chart this week because I drew out this trend line and set an alert to it at about 170, 166. No. 1 second. Let me just take a look. We go on a daily. Yeah. No, it was about 175 because we had a gap up the same day as the Oracle. We had that gap up from about 171. We went as high as 175.43. I'm sorry, we opened up at 175.43 to as high as 180 and then came off. Now, it is significant to notice that because we do have lower highs, so I want to keep an eye on this. If we could hold below this 175, I missed the alert, but if we could hold below, and I'm going to be watching particularly for the close, if we can hold below this area of support, I would consider, again, this is not investment advice for you, I'm just talking it out myself. I would consider going short if we can't somehow manage to pull above that area of support that was necessary. But there's that gap that's likely to fill if we don't. The next support area would be about 167. That is Nvidia. That is what I'm seeing on Nvidia. Today is just a quiet day, and sometimes that's good. Gives you opportunity to just look at positions with a little bit more time, not feel rushed into your next. And let's talk about Walmart. Walmart, I discussed on the. You could see it on the daily. You could see it on the 4 hour. I drew over here, head and shoulders bottom. I had a neckline of about 102.75. It alerted last week, and we broke. And my gut tells me if we're at the break of the 102.75, we'll probably test the previous high. And based on the trajectory of the graph of the stock itself, I would expect it to make new highs. It's a pretty bullish setup if we can just manage to break out of that new high, which I think, again, assuming the momentum is there, and the truth is, even if the market backs off, I think Walmart sometimes is a scapegoat for, as to funds and cyclical, that type of a thing, where if the market is down, people rush to more, how would you call it, conservative investments. So I would expect, I don't know how much on the downside would expect, but I don't know. I think that this really has some juice to it, assuming we can get out of this, assuming that we break this 104. We have broken that 102. Let's see what happens today, but it's a very bullish pattern. It's already starting to work out. Like I said, I expect that 104 and change, about 104 and a half, to be taken out on this, based on how the chart is looking. Is there anything else that I would like to discuss? We talk in video? We did talk about video crossing on the downside. The S&P is really at all-time highs, which makes me a little bit uncomfortable. So I may want to start taking some profits off the table, so that I have some cash sitting on the sidelines, in case we do get some sort of a pullback to take advantage of the opportunity. Let's take a look if there's anything else that I see that speaks to me. I don't think so. Tesla was a beast in its own. I don't know if I mentioned this already. Unfortunately, I missed this. I had a 365 area or 364 area had this alert set out. If you take a look, we were in a steady uptrend really uh, from about April, and we just continued to climb, but we were coiling. If you notice that we have this trend line, or it's a wedge, and the it just traded tighter and tighter and tighter. Typically, when you see these type of patterns form, you can expect whatever direction it breaks out of, that it would break out with some momentum, and you see that when it crossed that line, 364, whatever it was, it ran to almost 400, and then today it gapped up and ran as high as about 425 or in that area. So I mean, Tesla's a beast in its own, and Tesla, I've seen people get wrecked on it. I personally have had my ups and downs with it. It's like a challenge when you invest in Tesla, but you know, the if you were there, congrats on that trade, an excellent trade. And I know we mentioned it back um, in previous episodes that I posted. Tip: I think that the market is near its all-time highs. So again, you want to be cautiously optimistic about the future, but expect markets don't climb steadily in straight lines typically. They build over time, like you know, and like you literally see on this chart. This is what it's supposed to do. Hold on one second. You know, markets. Here, let me just point it out. And you know, that's how you have your ups and downs, but your so you, markets don't steadily go straight up or steadily go down. They tend to have a form. That's why patterns are so important, because even this in itself is a pattern. Um, so I am a little off the subject here. So you know, the S&P is in all-time highs, um, and if you take a look at a monthly or a daily or a weekly, um, let's go to a daily. You can see we've been just steadily climbing higher. It makes sense to get some pullback somewhere. Obviously, if there's information that hold on, let's see what's going on over here. I can't seem to get my oh, where are you? Nope. All right, we'll just try the best with what we have. But basically, like I said, you know, we've been coming up steadily, had our declines, coming up steadily, came down a little bit here, and just made new highs. I would expect some sort of a pullback here, possibly to this area. Um, let's just throw this up here so you can see what I'm looking at. I'm gonna adjust it in 1 second. I expect, you know, 654 area to be an area of support, and it would be nice to have some sort of a pullback. Listen, sometimes drastic pullbacks are gifts. That's what I believe. Every time I see a pullback, I like to take advantage of it. But right now we're at all time highs, and I think it's important to be optimistic, cautiously optimistic, by you know, perhaps raising cash at the same time as you know, holding your positions, you know, for opportunities that arise. That being said, if you have any questions or you have a chart that you'd want me to look at or to assess, to give you my opinion, I'd be more than happy to. I'm not giving investment advice. I'm giving you what I see in the charts. What you do with that information is up to you. But or if you have anything that you'd like to point out, things that I've discussed, something that you may not agree with, please comment, like, and subscribe. I appreciate your support. I appreciate you guys watching me on a daily basis. Motivates me to bring more and more to you guys. With that said, have a wonderful Monday, and see you tomorrow.